So this is the United States birth chart and the current transits that are currently occurring. We're also going to talk about some transits that are going to occur in the future. But this is the chart from yesterday when the United States basically launched attacks on Iran. First of all, I want to say the United States birth time is always very questionable. I have the United States as a Sagittarius ascendant. I feel like it fits, and that is the ascendant I am going with. So the United States is basically a sun in Cancer with a Sagittarius ascendant and an Aquarius moon. And I honestly believe that placement energy fits the USA quite nice. So the inner wheel is the US, the outer wheel is the current transits. So one of the things that really stands out to me is, as we see on the outer wheel, the sun is literally just setting in Cancer. It is at 0 degrees. The transitioning sun is at 0 degrees. The US has a Cancer sun at 13 degrees. Another thing that the US has is a Jupiter in Cancer. And what's also interesting is this energy is all in the 8th house. The sun is currently transitioning still in the US's 7th house. So it has not made it to the 8th house yet. So this transitioning Cancer sun basically started off yesterday automatically in the United States 7th house. The 7th house is the energy of partnerships. Some even see it as the energy of marriages, the energy of contracts, and areas of focus where it could be judgment, balance, and it traditionally has a lot of impact in external relationships, not necessarily interpersonal relationships, but external relationships. The sun is a very solar driven energy, meaning it's excessive, it's masculine, and it works off of the solar plex chakra. So this energy is all in the 7th still. It hasn't made it to the 8th. But what's also interesting is we have Jupiter in the 8th house. And what's interesting is when Jupiter basically started with Cancer, when Jupiter had its Cancer element take place, we noticed that there was a lot of the talks of the ice raids. I did a podcast about that. And now we see Jupiter in 2 degrees in Cancer quite nicely, right? We also have the energy of Mercury in 23 degrees, and that is basically conceived as a critical degree. What's also interesting is today Mercury is now at 24 degrees. So basically the US, as you could say, is having a Mercury return. So I do feel that there is going to be a lot of conversation, as we are seeing right now, about everything that has happened, and that this is really going to take media by storm. It's going to continue to be a major conversation, as it should be. And the conversation is basically going to entail like what is going to happen next, the closing of certain chapters, the start of certain energies, and the movement that can occur. Another thing that I want to point out in this chart is that we have the US having a natal Venus in Cancer as well. And it is at 3 degrees. We also see that is seen as an energy around relationships. And then we also have this energy making a strong square with the transitioning Saturn in Aries. So Saturn is currently at like 1 degree in Aries, and it is basically all in the US, is still in the energy of the 4th house. Neptune has kind of been placed in the energy of the 5th house. We see that energy of like social networks. And not just social networks, but also like connections and circles on a social forefront. And what's interesting is that the US is kind of feeling, even though they are in alliance with Israel, all of the other countries have basically condemned the attacks on Iran. So this means that the US's allies and also circles are having this constriction with Saturn, where we're seeing Saturn placing those energies of requirements and takeaways. So instead of the US's collective circle getting bigger, it's almost getting smaller. Another thing that I want to point out while we are looking at this chart is the moon. So another thing that I want to point out is when Pluto hit Aquarius, that is basically in the US's second house, okay? So we see that the US is a moon, an Aquarius moon. That Aquarius moon is in the second. We also have that Pluto is in the US's chart at 27 degrees. Currently, Pluto, the transitioning Pluto is only at 3 degrees. So the US is not in like a full Pluto return, but it's getting there. Slowly but surely it will get there. And it makes me wonder like what is going to happen, because the second house is all about like financial gains and also areas of wealth. And if the US is closing its interconnections and internal circles, will this really affect the US on an area of being one of the wealthiest nations? And if we're using all our money for wars, how will this be benefiting the US as a whole, as a collective? So Pluto is in retrograde, and what's also interesting about this is Pluto, when it is in retrograde, it moves at a slower pace. So people say like it's almost moving backwards. So Pluto will be direct on October 17th of 2025, which is literally like kind of around the corner. And it will be direct at 27 degrees, which will align with the US's. So we will see how this will affect the nation on October 17th with Pluto being direct. Also, I want to look at the energy of the 8th house again, because we have some upcoming movement that is occurring literally in a couple days. Okay, so this is basically June 25th at 6:31 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And many of you are probably wondering why I picked this time. This is the time of the new moon in Cancer. This new moon is traveling all in the US's 8th house, creating a conjunction with also Jupiter, the sun conjuncting the natal Venus, the transitioning moon conjuncting the natal Venus. So there's a lot of movement around relationships. When we look at Venus, Venus controls like the area of luxury, the area of movement around relationships, the emotional awareness that comes behind some of these relationships. So I do think that there's going to be some talk of something. Also during this time is we also have the transitioning Uranus that is currently in Taurus, getting ready to transition over to Gemini. And there's been so much talk about what's going to happen when Uranus reaches Gemini. I definitely think that this transitioning Uranus making a strong trine at that with the US's natal Pluto is also going to have an effect on the US. The Uranus transitioning over to Gemini is what has a lot of people nervous. But for those who know, Jupiter was the start. Jupiter was the catalyst that, I guess you could say, the catalyst that initiated a lot of this, right? The areas of change, transformation, what's to come next, I can't really say, but if we are going to go off of the patterns, what is going to come next isn't necessarily going to be pretty. When Uranus hits Gemini, that will all be in the 7th house of partnerships for the US. Creating a lot of energy right there. We have to remember that partnerships, allies, alliances are the key that keeps countries functional. And if we're closing those circles so tightly, it could really affect us in the long run. So yeah, that is my breakdown on everything that is happening in the US's chart.